Welcome back to my channel, guys, and greetings from San Diego, California. San Diego, San Diego, how I love thee. I love San Diego. I can't rave about San Diego enough. It's the perfect quintessential American beach town, in my opinion. It's not a place that's pretending to be anything else. It is ultimately a calm beach town with gorgeous sunsets, so many beaches, and I just always have an incredible time. I've made a gay travel in San Diego video before, though it was like 5 or 6 years ago at the time of this video, but I felt like it was time for a new one. A, because I cringe at most of my videos that are more than a year or two old, but also things change, right? Impressions change, what you look for and what you experience as a gay person change. So I figured it was time for a 2024 version of gay travel in San Diego. What I will say is that I do remember in that video, I remember having two sort of jarring takeaways of San Diego. And I have not experienced those this time, but I wanted to mention them. I remember the first time I came to San Diego as an adult thinking like, there's so many sexy guys around here. You know, it's an outdoorsy place, right? It's a beach town. So you have surfers, you have runners, you have swimmers, you have beach volleyball players, right? It's also a college town. There's a few different universities in the area. So you know how that goes. If you're in a outdoors and fitness oriented city or town, and you happen to have college campuses, you're gonna have a lot of hot guys walking around. But I remember then checking out the apps and thinking like, where are all the guys that I'm seeing? Like, they're not on the apps. And I remember that sort of jolting me, thinking like, are just none of them gay? Or is this a place where, because it's so outdoorsy, people don't even use apps the way they might in a colder city, let's say, and I mean cold both literally and figuratively, like in New York City, where people just spend more time indoors, and it's half the year all you want to do is hibernate. Maybe this is a culture where people are just more out and about and meeting people at the beach, meeting people at the bar, and so on. But the other first impression I had of San Diego all those years ago, it was the first place where I noticed, it was noticeable to me, how many guys on apps like Grindr, on hookup apps, were exclusively looking for trans women. And now, at the time of this video, that doesn't seem so unusual to me anymore. Any place that I go, I will see profiles that are like, don't contact me if you're a guy, on apps like Grindr, that, you know, apps that were intended for gay men, right? But now I feel like it's commonplace to see many profiles or several profiles in any given area that'll say only looking for trans women, cross-dressers, femme, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, 5 to 6 years ago, I remember it like leaving an impression on me that so many profiles here, so many guys were looking for that. And I don't know why it was San Diego of all places. I do know that San Diego has a reputation, really Southern California in general, has a reputation outside of Los Angeles for being socially liberal, but politically conservative. And this is well known also about Orange County, which is another county in the area. You've probably heard of Orange County, right? So many movies and TV shows about the OC, Laguna Beach and all those areas. But these are places that are pretty gay friendly, you know, so again, socially liberal, but politically more on the conservative side. Maybe it's that combination of conservative in some ways culturally, but liberal in others, made at the time more guys like awaken to their sexuality, but that the element of it still being kind of taboo made Grindr the perfect vehicle to seek that out. I don't know. I will say now, here in San Diego, I do still see profiles that aren't looking for men despite it being Grindr. But again, I feel like I now see that everywhere. I see it in Miami where I live. I see it anywhere else I traveled. Right before San Diego, I was in Seattle and Portland, Oregon, and same thing. A ton of guys now looking for other members of the LGBT umbrella. So I'm curious if you guys have context on this or what your observations are with this as well. Have you also noticed a shift over, let's say, the past 5 years of more and more guys openly on apps like Grindr seeking trans women or just some individual that's not a gay man, despite using apps that are maybe more affiliated with gay men like Grindr? So let me give a quick rundown of the layout of San Diego, because there are so many neighborhoods that if you've never been and you're not sure where to start, it might be a little bit overwhelming. My whole thing is, at a beach town, you have to go to the beach, right? So every time I come here, I always stay on the beach. I tend to stay in Mission Beach, which is my favorite, absolute favorite part of San Diego. It's very like Americana, quintessential sort of beach town when you think of all those shows and movies that we all grew up watching, all those references. And it's funny because a lot of that media, like let's say Beverly Hills 90210 or Baywatch, right? A lot of these TV shows and movies were really depicting the beach and the suburbs of Los Angeles. But really, I feel like San Diego is closer to that like fantasy image that many of us grew up seeing on television than the actual area of Los Angeles. Like, I've been to Malibu. To me, Malibu is an acquired taste. Actually, I think I have a video on Malibu on this channel from years ago. Malibu's fine, but for me, San Diego always leaves an impression. Like, I always come here and then leave feeling like healed spiritually. It's just the beach, the sunsets, the climate, the air here that you can breathe. There isn't the smog that Los Angeles has. Anyway, I digress, but I always stay in Mission Beach, which has a boardwalk right on the beach. Some of you guys know by now, I love myself a boardwalk. So there's people biking, walking. I will run every day on the boardwalk as the sun is setting, and I literally will feel like I'm in a movie when I do that. I mean, the sunsets that you catch, particularly in Mission Beach, are stunning. Probably the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And the first few times I came to San Diego, I thought I just got lucky with the time of year, but literally every time I come here, just about daily, you see stunning, stunning sunsets. Mission Beach also happens to have a bunch of restaurants and bars right there. There's also a theme park on the beach. So again, it's very sort of like Americana, California beach town. If you've never experienced that, or you've kind of like fantasized about it the way that I did as a kid, immigrant growing up, I recommend Mission Beach. But of course, there's other beaches that are well known here. La Jolla. The beaches there are less sexy, but La Jolla is more sort of like the upscale, wealthier neighborhood, which of course therefore attracts less young people, but more sort of family oriented, much older crowds, but it's considered the more like sophisticated part of town. And then you have other beaches like Ocean Beach, which is much more of a college beach. Pacific Beach, also much younger crowd. Can't make this video without talking about Black's Beach. I've made videos about Black's Beach before. Black's Beach is partially a nude beach, the only nude beach I've ever been to. And probably the reason it became a nude beach is because you're so isolated. You have to hike all the way down this cliff, and it's quite a hike, but it's so worth it because once you're down there, you're completely isolated. You're just surrounded by nature. There's no cars, you can't hear them, you can't see them. You're just with nature and some nude people. I'm sure some of you are wondering if I actually ended up going nude. I'm an amateur nudist in that when I go to Black's Beach, I will sequester myself off in the distance and I will go nude while sunbathing just to get vitamin D on places that haven't seen the sun since infancy. But I'm not one of those people who's like, I'm just gonna stroll around naked. And there are a lot of people who are that way. Unsurprisingly, I would say most of the nude people at Black's Beach are older men, presumably all gay. But it's a very chill vibe. However, this is the only time I've ever been to Black's Beach where there were definitely a few creeps. And I don't know if I just got lucky the past few times, but I noticed one guy, I'm pretty sure he was fondling himself while looking at me. He was also nude in the distance. and he was like facing towards me on his side, and I just saw him kind of like slap his junk around, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? Suddenly I didn't feel so free, so liberated being nude. It's funny how that works, right? It's just like sexuality. It's like when you feel in control of it, it's very freeing, but when somebody else is taking advantage of you being in your element, it, like suddenly it's not so festive. Black's Beach is definitely like a cruising ground, definitely guys trying to make eye contact with you. I of course avoid eye contact unless I'm into somebody, but you know how that goes. Most people who are on the hunt and trying to just make eye contact with anybody are not, not the freshest meat that one would be interested in. So there's all these neighborhoods, and all the ones I've mentioned so far are on the beach, like beach neighborhoods. But if you go a little bit more inland, then you have the city of San Diego. So you have the downtown region, and uptown you have Hillcrest. Hillcrest is the gay neighborhood of San Diego. You can't really miss it. Gay bars, gay friendly establishments, the rainbow flags, the whole thing. And what's interesting about a place like Hillcrest is that, like many other gay neighborhoods in the country, and I've talked about this on other videos on this channel, it's more gentrified than ever before. So even though it is thought of as the gay neighborhood, you have more straight people than ever going to the gay bars there. A few years ago, I went with my brother who's straight, and he was like, oh yeah, every week we go to the gay bars because they have these killer deals, like happy hour deals. And I went with him once, and it was filled with college kids, many of whom, if not most of whom, were definitely not gay. And so it's this weird bittersweet thing where you're like, well, fantastic that these young 20-something year olds are keeping these bars busy and prosperous, but it's also like kind of kills the purpose of a gay bar if all these people aren't gay, right? But that's the trade-off. If we want acceptance of any community, even beyond gay people and LGBT people, right? It's like once you really get that acceptance, you become assimilated, right? You become integrated into society. And it's like, ultimately, isn't that what we want? Of course, it would be nice to have our own little terrain, but I think if I had to choose between the two, a really bigoted society where you have to build community to feel safe, in this case as a gay person, I would rather take the option of these communities are watered down, but you also just feel more accepted by straight people. Curious what you guys think about that element as well. I know it's come up in a few videos before. Some of you feel very strongly about gay communities getting watered down. I think where it really bothers me with the gay bar stuff is when it's bachelorette parties. That will bother me, because that to me feels like gay people then, or like the gay bar is that group of women's entertainment. And to me, that's kind of offensive. That to me is different from college-age kids looking for a cheap happy hour, and this happens to be that bar, and it happens to be a gay bar. I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Wow, this video is turning out to be quite lengthy. So just to wrap it up, I just went through some of the neighborhoods. I do feel like that phenomenon that I noticed the first time I came here of not seeing on apps the sexiness reflected in real life, I actually do feel this time and the last time or two that I came to San Diego that has shifted. And again, I think that's a sign of the times, just like the trans desire or request on these apps. I think more and more people are depending on apps to meet others, whether for sex, for dating, for whatever. I definitely feel like there's more options on apps, even the more traditional or like dating oriented apps like Bumble and Tinder. It seems to me that there's way more options now on these apps than there was 5 years ago or whenever I first made that video. What I will also mention, and maybe this is just my trauma of living in Miami, but I feel like people are just nicer here, and it comes through even on apps that people are friendlier. I've had several guys ask me how long I'm staying, what brought me to San Diego. These are basic conversational skills, but you'd be surprised in some places how like cutthroat it is. I was joking with a friend, she was asking me about my experience here and if I met anybody, and I was saying, well, for starters, nobody's asked me for money on these apps. In Miami, there's always a guy who's like, oh, I'm Gen only, Gen as in generous, like they want a guy to pay them to hang out, which is like, what am I, the one-eyed pirate from the 1800s? Like I need to pay I need to go to a brothel. Like, what is this? So overall, love San Diego. Of course, you have to love a beach town aesthetic to want to come here. But if you haven't been, definitely add it to your list. If nothing else, for those stunning sunsets in Mission Beach that I mentioned. And I'm gonna end this video with some footage I took, breathtaking footage, to show you why I love San Diego. Catch you guys next time.